Nothing changes by accident. Days pass, weeks pass, and without realizing it, months disappear. Not because something went wrong, but because nothing was decided. This audiobook is not here to motivate you. It's not here to excite you for one night or push you with empty energy. It's here to talk about discipline. 6 months will not magically change your life, but 6 months of discipline will change who you are. And when you change who you are, everything else begins to change naturally. Discipline is not punishment. It's not suffering, force, or self-hate. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's choosing long-term control over short-term comfort. It's doing what needs to be done, even when no one is watching. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a new personality. You don't need to wait for the right time. What you need is consistency. Confidence is not built by thinking positively. It's built by keeping promises to yourself, especially the small ones. That's where discipline begins. If you give yourself 6 months of real discipline, not perfection, not extreme routines, not unrealistic expectations, but honest, repeatable discipline, you won't recognize the person you used to be. Your mornings will feel calmer, your thoughts will slow down, your reactions will be controlled, your standards will rise, and most importantly, you will stop feeling disappointed in yourself. Change everything doesn't mean changing your entire life overnight. It means changing how you start your day, how you respond under pressure, how you treat your time, and what you allow to stay in your life. Because the life you're living is a reflection of what you tolerate. This audiobook is built on one simple truth. Your life improves only when discipline becomes non-negotiable. In the chapters ahead, discipline will be broken down into something practical and human. Not theory, not hype, not philosophy for display, but actions you can take today. You'll learn why information alone never creates change, why your first hour decides the direction of your day, why negotiating with yourself weakens your authority, why boredom is not the enemy, it's the training ground, why focus must be protected, why emotional control is a form of strength, and why consistency always wins. This is not a sprint. It's a quiet rebuild. There will be days when discipline feels heavy. There will be moments when quitting seems easier. That's not failure. That's the work. 6 months from now, only one thing will matter. Did you stay consistent when no one was watching? So listen carefully, apply slowly, and start where you are. Discipline doesn't begin with intensity. It begins with a decision. Give yourself 6 months of discipline and let everything else change. Chapter 1. Why your life hasn't changed yet. Nothing is wrong with you. That matters because many people secretly believe something is missing. More intelligence, more confidence, more motivation, more discipline. But the truth is simpler. Your life hasn't changed because your actions haven't changed. You may have learned more. You may have listened to podcasts, read books, saved quotes, watched videos. But learning is not transformation. Repetition is. Information creates awareness. Discipline creates identity. And identity is what shapes your life. Many people confuse clarity with progress. They feel productive because they understand what they should do. But understanding without execution is comfort disguised as growth. You don't change your life by knowing what's right. You change your life by doing what's right, again and again, especially when it feels boring, uncomfortable, or unnecessary. That's where change either begins or dies. Most days, discipline doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't feel powerful. It doesn't feel rewarding. It feels ordinary. And that's why it works. Look closely at your daily behavior. Not your intentions, not your plans, not your goals, your behavior. That is the clearest mirror of who you are becoming. If your days are reactive, your life becomes reactive. If your days are unstructured, your mind becomes unstructured. If your days are inconsistent, your confidence slowly disappears. Nothing collapses all at once. No crisis, no warning. Just slow erosion. You start breaking small promises to yourself. You delay what matters. You negotiate instead of decide. Over time, you stop trusting yourself, not because you're weak, but because you trained yourself to compromise instead of commit. Discipline is not about doing hard things constantly. It's about removing negotiation from your life. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you weaken your authority. Every time you follow through, you strengthen it. This is why your life hasn't changed. Not because you don't know what to do, but because you don't consistently do the same small things. Real discipline is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look impressive. It looks like showing up on days when nothing feels special. It looks like doing the same simple action without excitement. It looks like choosing structure when comfort is available. Most people avoid this. They want intensity without consistency, results without repetition, change without discomfort. But discipline doesn't work that way. Discipline is built through boredom, the same wake-up time, the same small habit, the same controlled response, the same decision repeated daily. This is where identity changes. Not when you feel inspired, but when you act without needing to feel inspired. Right now, you don't need to redesign your entire life. You don't need a new routine, a new plan, or a new identity. You need one decision, one behavior you stop negotiating, one action you do every day, regardless of mood. Because discipline is not created by doing many things once. It's created by doing one thing many times. Choose something small enough that excuses sound weak. Wake up at the same time. Write one page. Train for 10 minutes. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Finish what you start. The action itself matters less than the follow-through. Every time you follow through, you send yourself a message. I can be trusted. That message changes how you think, how you speak to yourself, how you show up. This is the foundation of confidence, not affirmations, not mindset tricks, evidence, and evidence is built through discipline. Your life hasn't changed yet because discipline hasn't been consistent yet. That doesn't mean it won't change. It means it hasn't started. And it starts now, with one decision you refuse to negotiate. Because clarity without action is self-deception. And discipline begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. Chapter 2. Discipline starts with your first hour. The first hour of your day decides more than you think, not because it's special, not because it's magical, but because it sets the tone your mind will follow for the next 16 hours. Before the world asks anything of you, before messages arrive, before noise begins, there is a brief window where your mind is neutral. That window is either protected or wasted. Most people give it away without noticing. They reach for their phone. They react instead of decide. They let outside input shape their internal state. And once that happens, control is already lost. Discipline does not start with big goals or ambitious plans. It starts with how you begin. The first hour is not about productivity. It's about authority. Who is in charge when the day begins? You or everything else? If your first action is reaction, your entire day becomes reactive. You spend hours responding, adjusting, recovering. By the time evening arrives, you feel exhausted. Not because you worked hard, but because you never led yourself. This is why so many people feel busy but unfulfilled, active but unfocused, tired without progress. The first hour trains your nervous system. It tells your mind whether today will be intentional or accidental. Discipline begins when you decide that the first hour belongs to you. That does not mean a complicated routine. It does not require extreme habits or perfect mornings. It requires structure. Structure creates calm. Calm creates clarity. Clarity creates discipline. When the first hour is structured, the rest of the day follows more easily. When it's chaotic, everything feels harder than it should. Most people try to fix their life from the middle of the day. They wait until motivation appears. They try to recover after damage is already done. Discipline works in the opposite direction. You don't fix the day after it breaks. You prevent it from breaking in the first place. That's the role of the first hour. The goal is simple. Reduce decisions. Remove noise. Establish control. Start by eliminating the biggest threat to discipline in the morning. External input. No messages. No news. No social media. No endless scrolling. Not because these things are evil, but because they hand control of your attention to someone else. Attention is power, and discipline begins with protecting it. When you allow outside voices into your mind before your own, you weaken your ability to decide. Your mind becomes crowded before it becomes clear. Instead, the first hour should include 3 elements: movement, stillness, direction. Movement does not need to be intense. It needs to be intentional. Stretch, walk, breathe, wake your body up. Movement signals readiness. It tells your mind the day has begun, and you are present. Stillness comes next. Silence is not empty. It's stabilizing. Sit quietly. Breathe slowly. Allow your thoughts to settle. You don't need to meditate perfectly. You just need to stop consuming. This is where control starts to return. Then comes direction. One clear intention, one priority. Not a long list, not an ambitious plan. One thing that matters today. When your mind knows what matters, distraction loses its power. This entire process can take 15 to 30 minutes. That's enough. Discipline is not built by doing more. It's built by doing less, consistently. The mistake most people make is trying to turn mornings into performances. They add too much. They aim too high. They fail and quit. Discipline thrives on simplicity. The first hour should be boring, repeatable, and predictable. Same time, same structure, same intention. Predictability builds trust. Trust builds discipline. Over time, your mind begins to expect order instead of chaos, calm instead of urgency. And that expectation changes how you move through the day. You become less reactive, more deliberate, harder to distract. This is not about becoming rigid. It's about becoming grounded. When your first hour is disciplined, you don't need to fight the day. You meet it with clarity. You will still face pressure. You will still face stress, but you won't face it unprepared. That's the difference. Discipline does not remove difficulty. It prepares you for it. If you want to change your life over the next 6 months, this is where you begin. Not with dramatic changes, not with massive goals, with ownership of the first hour. Protect it, simplify it, repeat it, because how you begin your day is how you train your mind, and how you train your mind is how you build discipline. Chapter 3. Stop negotiating with yourself. There is a quiet habit that destroys discipline faster than failure ever could. Negotiation, not with other people, with yourself. It sounds harmless at first. I'll start tomorrow. Just this once. I've had a long day. I deserve a break. I'll make up for it later. None of these feel dangerous, but together they form a pattern, and that pattern slowly removes your authority over your own life. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you delay action. Every time you delay action, you weaken trust, and every time trust weakens, discipline becomes harder to access. This is why so many people feel stuck even though they are trying. They don't fail outright. They hesitate. They pause. They bargain. They soften their own rules. Discipline does not survive negotiation, because discipline requires clarity, and negotiation introduces doubt. When you decide something once and follow through, your mind learns stability. When you decide something and then debate it every day, your mind learns chaos. Over time, your internal voice loses credibility. You stop believing your own plans, your own promises, your own intentions. Not because you are incapable, but because you trained yourself to treat decisions as suggestions. This chapter is about ending that pattern. Discipline begins the moment you remove choice from what matters. That does not mean removing freedom. It means removing unnecessary decisions. High performers do not rely on willpower. They rely on rules. Rules eliminate negotiation. When something is a rule, there is nothing to discuss. You either follow it or you don't. And when you follow it consistently, identity begins to shift. Think about how negotiation actually feels in your body. It feels heavy, it feels slow, it drains energy before action even begins. That's because your mind is trying to protect comfort. Comfort argues. Discipline decides. The more you argue with yourself, the more exhausted you become, even before doing anything. This is why discipline often feels harder than it needs to be. You're not tired from action, you're tired from internal debate. Decision fatigue is real, and most of it is self-created. You don't need to decide every day whether to do what you already know is necessary. You need to decide once and enforce it. The strongest form of discipline is simple structure. Fixed wake-up time, non-negotiable habits, clear boundaries. Not because life should be rigid, but because your mind needs stability to perform. When everything is optional, nothing is consistent. Negotiation also creates emotional loopholes. On hard days, you negotiate. On tired days, you negotiate. On emotional days, you negotiate. Soon, discipline only exists on good days. And good days are unreliable. Discipline is built for bad days. That's why it must be decided in advance. You don't wait until you're tired to decide whether you'll follow through. You decide when you are calm and execute when you are not. This is how authority is built. Authority is not volume, it's consistency. The moment you stop negotiating, something changes internally. There is relief, not because the work disappears, but because the debate does. You conserve energy, you move faster, you act with less friction. This is what discipline is supposed to feel like. Quiet, clear, unemotional. Most people think discipline means pushing harder. It doesn't. It means deciding earlier. If you want to stop negotiating with yourself, start with one area, one habit, one rule. Choose something small enough to enforce, but important enough to matter. For example, you wake up at the same time, no debate. You train for 10 minutes, no exceptions. You write one page, regardless of mood. You stop when you said you would stop. No bargaining, no mental discussions, just action. At first, your mind will resist. That's normal. You trained it to negotiate. Now you are training it to obey. Discipline is not harshness, it is clarity. When your mind knows there is no alternative, it adapts quickly. And when adaptation happens, discipline becomes easier, not harder. Over time, something important happens. You begin to trust yourself again, not because you feel confident, but because you have evidence. You said you would do something, and you did it. That evidence accumulates, and with it comes calm confidence, the kind that does not need validation, the kind that does not announce itself. This is how discipline becomes identity. You're no longer someone who tries, you're someone who follows through, and when that identity is established, change accelerates. Not through intensity, but through reliability. Your life begins to shift not because you are forcing it, but because you are finally leading yourself. Negotiation ends here. Decisions become rules. Rules become habits. Habits become identity. And identity shapes everything that follows. Discipline is not about doing more. It's about deciding once and refusing to argue with yourself ever again. Chapter 4. Learn to do what's boring. There is a reason most people never reach mastery. It's not because they lack talent, it's not because they lack intelligence, it's because they cannot tolerate boredom. They want progress to feel exciting, they want growth to feel rewarding, they want effort to feel meaningful every single day. But real discipline does not feel exciting, it feels repetitive, and repetition is where most people quit. At the beginning, everything feels new. New habits, new routines, new intentions, energy is high, motivation is strong. Then the novelty fades, the work starts to feel ordinary. Progress becomes invisible, results slow down. This is the moment discipline is tested. Not when things are hard, but when they are boring. Boredom is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that the real work has begun. Most people misunderstand boredom. They think it means something is wrong. It doesn't. Boredom means you are repeating the same action long enough for it to actually change you. Discipline is built in these moments, when nothing feels special, when no one is watching, when there is no immediate reward. This is where identity is forged. Anyone can act when they feel inspired. Very few can act when they feel nothing. That's why boredom separates those who change from those who stay the same. Look closely at your own patterns. How often do you abandon something because it stopped feeling interesting? How often do you search for something new instead of staying with what works? That constant search is not curiosity. It's avoidance. Avoidance of repetition. Avoidance of discomfort. Avoidance of patience. But discipline requires patience. Progress that lasts is slow by design. The body adapts slowly. The mind rewires slowly. Character forms slowly. There is no shortcut around this. If you want to change your life in 6 months, you must learn to respect boring days. Because boring days are not wasted days. They are training days. Days where nothing dramatic happens, but everything important is reinforced. When you show up on a boring day, you send a powerful message to yourself. I don't need excitement to follow through. That message builds strength. Most people quit not because the task is too hard, but because the task no longer entertains them. They confuse entertainment with purpose. Discipline has nothing to do with entertainment. It has everything to do with reliability. Reliability is what compounds. A single intense effort means nothing if it cannot be repeated. Small, boring actions repeated daily outperform dramatic efforts every time. This is why consistency always wins. The problem is not that boredom is difficult. The problem is that boredom feels pointless. You do the work and nothing seems to change. But change is happening below the surface. Just like physical training, you don't see strength increase after one session. You see it after weeks of repetition. The same principle applies to discipline. Every boring repetition strengthens a neural pathway. Every repeated action reinforces identity. You are teaching your mind what is normal. And what becomes normal stops requiring effort. This is when discipline becomes automatic. At first, boredom feels uncomfortable. Later, it feels familiar. Eventually, it feels stable. Stability creates calm. Calm creates control. Control creates freedom. This is the paradox of discipline. By committing to repetition, you gain independence from mood. You no longer depend on how you feel to act. You act because it's time, and that changes everything. If you want to build discipline, stop asking, "Is this exciting?" Do I feel motivated? Is this worth it today? Start asking, can I repeat this tomorrow? Can I repeat this next week? Can I repeat this even when nothing changes? If the answer is yes, you are on the right path. Choose habits that are simple enough to repeat and boring enough to sustain. Not impressive, not extreme, sustainable. The same wake-up time, the same short workout, the same focused work block, the same evening shutdown. Day after day. This is how discipline stops feeling heavy. It becomes routine, and routine is powerful. Because routine removes resistance. You no longer debate. You no longer negotiate. You simply do. Boredom is not the enemy of progress. It is the price of it. Those who accept boredom quietly outgrow those who chase excitement loudly. 6 months of discipline will not be 6 months of excitement. It will be 6 months of repetition. That repetition, if maintained, will change you permanently. Not because it felt good, but because you stayed when there was no reason to leave. That is how discipline is built, and that is how everything begins to change. Chapter 5. Cut everything that weakens. Your focus. Focus is not something you find. It is something you protect. Most people believe they struggle with focus because they lack discipline. In reality, they struggle because they allow too much access to their attention. Their mind is never alone, never quiet, never undisturbed. And a distracted mind cannot build a disciplined life. You don't lose focus all at once. You lose it in fragments. A notification, a quick check, a short break that turns into an hour, a conversation that pulls you out of momentum. None of these feel dangerous by themselves, but together they break continuity, and without continuity, nothing meaningful gets built. Discipline requires depth. Depth requires uninterrupted time, and uninterrupted time requires boundaries. This is where most people fail. They try to increase focus without removing distractions. They add techniques. They add tools. They add systems, but they never subtract. Discipline is subtraction before it is addition. If something consistently pulls your attention away from what matters, it is not neutral. It is a liability, and liabilities must be removed. This is uncomfortable to accept because many distractions feel harmless. They feel relaxing. They feel deserved. They feel normal. But normal does not mean harmless. Most people are not exhausted because they work too hard. They are exhausted because they switch too often. Switching drains energy. Every time you shift attention, your mind pays a cost. That cost accumulates. By the end of the day, you feel mentally tired without having produced anything meaningful. This creates frustration, and frustration weakens discipline. The solution is not working longer, it is protecting focus more aggressively. Focus is not a personality trait, it is an environment you create. If your environment encourages interruption, your discipline will constantly be tested, and discipline should not be tested all day. It should be preserved. This chapter is about removing what weakens you, not dramatically, not all at once, but intentionally. Start with awareness. Pay attention to what breaks your concentration, not what relaxes you, not what entertains you, what interrupts you, what pulls you out of the present moment. Phones are the obvious example, but they are not the only one. Open tabs, background noise, unplanned conversations, constant availability. Availability is the enemy of focus. When you are always reachable, you are never fully present. Discipline requires periods of inaccessibility, not isolation, but boundaries. You don't need to disappear from the world. You need to disappear from distractions. This means creating protected blocks of time. Time where nothing enters unless you allow it. No notifications, no messages, no random input. Just one task. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will reach for stimulation. It will search for escape. That urge is not a signal to stop. It is withdrawal. You are breaking a pattern of constant input. And breaking patterns always feels uncomfortable. Stay. The discomfort fades faster than you think. And when it fades, something else appears. Clarity. Clarity makes discipline easier. When your mind is not crowded, decisions become simpler. You stop overthinking. You stop second-guessing. You just act. This is what focus gives you. Not intensity, not pressure. Simplicity. Many people try to become more disciplined by pushing themselves harder. They believe resistance is proof of growth. Sometimes it is, but often resistance is just noise. Noise created by distractions that should have been removed. If you want to strengthen discipline, don't ask how much more you can handle. Ask what you can eliminate. What drains you without giving anything back? What consumes time without creating progress? What leaves you mentally scattered? Those things are costing you more than you realize. Cutting them is not weakness, it is strategy. Discipline is not about enduring chaos, it is about designing order. This does not mean eliminating all pleasure. It means placing pleasure where it does not interfere with focus. There is a time for rest. There is a time for enjoyment. But discipline requires clear separation. When everything is mixed together, nothing is respected. Work becomes distracted. Rest becomes guilty. Structure fixes this. When focus time is protected, rest becomes deeper. When rest is intentional, focus becomes stronger. They support each other, but only when boundaries exist. The disciplined mind is not rigid. It is selective. It knows what deserves attention and what does not. Over time, this selectivity becomes automatic. You stop reacting. You stop checking. You stop being pulled in every direction. You regain control, and control creates calm. This is why cutting distractions feels powerful. Not because life becomes quiet, but because your mind does. 6 months of discipline requires 6 months of focus protection. Not perfection, not isolation, consistency. Remove what weakens you. Protect what strengthens you. Focus is not built by force, it is built by removal. And when focus is protected, discipline no longer feels like a constant struggle. It feels natural, because nothing is pulling you away anymore. That is how momentum is created, and momentum is what carries discipline forward when effort alone is not enough. There is a hidden reason distractions feel so powerful. They offer relief without resolution. When focus becomes uncomfortable, distraction provides an exit, not a solution, an escape. And the more often you escape, the less tolerance you develop for depth. Depth requires staying. Staying with one task, one thought, one effort. Most people never experience real focus because they leave too early. They mistake discomfort for danger. But discomfort is simply the mind adjusting to stillness. When you remove distractions, your mind becomes restless. It searches for stimulation. It looks for something familiar. This restlessness is not a flaw. It is withdrawal. You are breaking a dependency on constant input. And like all dependencies, it resists. This is why protecting focus feels difficult at first. Your mind has been trained to expect interruption. Silence feels unnatural. Stillness feels wrong. But discipline lives on the other side of that discomfort. If you stay long enough, the noise fades. Thoughts slow down. Attention stabilizes. Clarity returns. This is when focus becomes productive instead of exhausting. Another mistake people make is believing focus means doing everything intensely. It doesn't. Focus means choosing one thing and honoring that choice. When you try to focus on multiple priorities at once, you dilute effort. Diluted effort creates mediocre results. Mediocre results weaken motivation. Weak motivation invites distraction. This cycle repeats endlessly. Discipline breaks the cycle by narrowing attention. One task, one window of time, one clear objective. Nothing else matters in that moment. This level of focus feels rare today because it is rare, and rarity creates advantage. People who protect focus outperform people who chase productivity hacks. Because real progress does not come from doing more, it comes from staying longer. Staying with the problem, staying with the effort, staying with the silence. Focus is not about speed, it is about immersion. Immersion changes how you think, how you solve problems, how you relate to effort. Once you experience deep focus regularly, shallow work becomes intolerable. You stop enjoying constant switching. You crave continuity. This craving is a sign of discipline forming. Over time, you begin to design your life around focus. You schedule less. You protect more. You stop explaining boundaries. You enforce them. And enforcement is discipline. When you cut distractions, you are not limiting your life. You are reclaiming it. Attention is your most valuable resource. Where it goes, your life follows. Protect it long enough, and discipline no longer feels like resistance. It feels like alignment. Chapter 6. Emotional control is discipline. Emotions are not the problem. Lack of control is. Most people believe discipline is about actions. Waking up early, working harder, staying consistent. But what actually breaks discipline most often is emotion. A bad mood, a moment of frustration, a feeling of overwhelm, a sudden spike of anger, boredom, or self-doubt. One emotional moment is enough to derail an entire day, sometimes an entire week. Not because the emotion was strong, but because it was allowed to take control. Discipline is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to remain steady while emotion is present. You will never eliminate emotions. That is not the goal. The goal is to stop letting emotions decide your behavior. This is where most people lose momentum. They wake up disciplined. They start the day with intention. Then something small happens. A message they didn't expect. A delay. A mistake. A comment that hits the wrong nerve. And suddenly, everything changes. Focus disappears. Structure collapses. Old habits return. Not because discipline was weak, but because emotion was given authority. This chapter is about taking that authority back. Emotional control is not suppression, it is regulation. Suppression ignores emotion. Regulation observes it. When you suppress emotion, it builds pressure. When you regulate emotion, it passes. Discipline lives in that space between stimulus and response. The pause. Most people don't pause. They react. Reaction feels automatic, but it is trained. You react the way you have practiced reacting. That means reaction can be retrained. The disciplined person is not calmer by nature. They are calmer by habit. They have learned to slow down the moment, to feel the emotion without becoming it. This is a skill. And like all skills, it is built through repetition. The first step is awareness. You cannot control what you do not notice. Pay attention to the moments when discipline slips. Not the big failures, the small emotional shifts, the sigh before quitting, the irritation before distraction, the frustration before avoidance. These are warning signs. Emotion is asking for control. If you respond immediately, emotion wins. If you pause, discipline enters. That pause does not need to be long. 3 breaths, 5 seconds, 1 conscious decision, enough to interrupt the automatic response. In that pause, remind yourself of one truth. Emotions pass. Consequences remain. Every emotional reaction creates a result. That result often lasts longer than the feeling that caused it. This is why emotional discipline matters so much. You don't regret emotions. You regret actions taken because of emotions. The disciplined person understands this deeply. They do not ask, "How do I feel right now?" They ask, "Who do I choose to be in this moment?" Identity overrides emotion. When identity is clear, emotions lose power. This is why discipline must be rooted in identity, not mood. If you act only when you feel calm, motivated, or confident, your discipline will always be fragile. Because emotions are unstable, discipline is built for instability. It is built for tired days, stressful days, unfair days. Emotional control does not mean becoming cold or detached. It means becoming grounded. Grounded people feel deeply but respond deliberately. They do not escalate every feeling into action. They allow emotion to exist without letting it dictate behavior. This is especially important during moments of pressure. Pressure exposes patterns. Under pressure, undisciplined people rush. They react. They say things they regret. They abandon structure. Disciplined people slow down, not because pressure disappears, but because control increases. Slowing down is a form of power. It creates space to choose a response instead of repeating a pattern. One of the most practical discipline practices is this. When emotion rises, slow your body, lower your voice, relax your jaw, breathe deeper. The body leads the mind. When the body slows, the mind follows. This is not weakness, it is control. Many people believe intensity equals strength. It doesn't. Control equals strength. Anyone can react loudly. Few can remain composed, and composure compounds. The more you practice emotional regulation, the more stable your discipline becomes. You stop losing days to moments. You stop losing weeks to bad mornings. You recover faster. Recovery is discipline. Perfection is not required. You will still react sometimes. You will still slip. The difference is how quickly you return. Undisciplined people spiral. Disciplined people reset. Resetting is a skill. It begins with accountability without self-attack. You notice the reaction. You acknowledge it. You return to structure. No drama. No punishment. Just correction. This builds trust. You learn that one emotional moment does not cancel progress. You learn that discipline is resilient. This is critical for long-term change. 6 months of discipline will include emotional storms, stress, doubt, fatigue. If you let emotions dictate behavior, those 6 months will collapse. If you learn to regulate emotion, those 6 months will transform you. Because emotional discipline does something powerful. It breaks the link between feeling and action. Once that link is broken, freedom appears. You are no longer controlled by mood. You are guided by standards. Standards outlast feelings. This is why emotional control is not optional. It is foundational. Without it, discipline remains unstable. With it, discipline becomes durable. Durable discipline builds a durable life. Not a life without emotion, but a life where emotion no longer decides everything. That is real strength. And that strength is trained, one controlled moment at a time. There is another layer to emotional discipline that most people never develop. Responsibility without blame. When emotions take over and discipline breaks, the undisciplined response is self-attack. Harsh thoughts, guilt, shame. These reactions feel like accountability, but they are not. They drain energy instead of restoring control. Real discipline does not punish emotion, it redirects behavior. You can acknowledge emotion without identifying with it. I feel frustrated is not the same as I am frustrated. That distinction matters. When you merge identity with emotion, you lose leverage. When you separate them, you regain choice. Emotional discipline is the ability to say, this feeling is present, but it does not decide. This is especially important after mistakes. Everyone slips, everyone reacts poorly at times. What separates disciplined people is not fewer mistakes. It is faster recovery. Recovery is emotional skill. Instead of spiraling, they reset. They do not justify the reaction. They do not dramatize it. They return to structure. Structure absorbs emotion. Routine stabilizes the nervous system. Predictability reduces internal chaos. This is why disciplined people lean into routine during stressful periods, not to escape emotion, but to contain it. Emotion needs boundaries. Without boundaries, it expands. With boundaries, it settles. This is why emotional control is inseparable from daily structure. Sleep, nutrition, movement, and rhythm all influence emotional stability. Ignoring these foundations makes emotional discipline nearly impossible. You cannot outthink a dysregulated nervous system. This is not weakness, it is biology. Discipline respects reality. It works with the body, not against it. Another overlooked aspect of emotional discipline is resisting emotional storytelling. The mind loves narratives. This always happens to me. I'm behind. I'll never be consistent. These stories amplify emotion and reduce control. Disciplined people interrupt the story. They return to facts. What is the next action? What is in my control right now? Facts ground emotion. Stories inflame it. Emotional discipline is choosing grounding over drama. Over time, this choice becomes automatic. You feel emotion rise, and you do not follow it. You acknowledge it. You regulate it. You act anyway. This is not suppression. Suppression hides emotion. Discipline carries it without letting it drive. That capacity changes everything. You stop being derailed by bad moments. You stop losing days to moods. You become stable. And stability is power. Not loud power, not aggressive power. Quiet power. The power to stay consistent when circumstances are not ideal. That is emotional discipline. And without it, no amount of motivation will hold. With it, discipline becomes unshakable. Because emotions will always come and go, but your standards remain. And standards, when enforced calmly, outlast every feeling. Chapter 7. Become someone you can trust. There is a quiet damage that happens when you repeatedly break promises to yourself. No one else may notice it. No one may call you out on it. But you feel it. Each time you say you'll do something and don't, something weakens inside you. Not motivation, not confidence. Trust. Self-trust is the foundation of discipline. Without it, every plan feels fragile. Every goal feels uncertain. You start doubting your own words. I'll start tomorrow. I'll stay consistent this time. I'll finish what I begin. Over time, those statements lose weight. They sound familiar, but empty. This is why discipline feels difficult for so many people. They are not fighting laziness. They are fighting a history of broken self-promises. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to act. It is about rebuilding trust with yourself. Trust is built the same way it is built with others, through consistency, through reliability, through follow-through. Big promises do not build trust. Small kept promises do. Most people try to rebuild discipline by aiming higher. They promise more, they demand more. But pressure without trust collapses quickly. The disciplined path is the opposite. Lower the promise, raise the follow-through. When you promise less and deliver consistently, your internal credibility begins to recover. You start believing yourself again. This belief changes how effort feels. Effort becomes natural. Resistance decreases. Because when you trust yourself, there is no internal debate. You act because you said you would. This chapter is about becoming reliable to yourself. Not impressive, not intense, reliable. Reliability is underrated because it is quiet. It doesn't look ambitious, it doesn't attract attention, but it compounds faster than motivation ever could. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce a powerful identity. I am someone who follows through. Identity drives behavior. Once that identity is established, discipline stops feeling like a struggle. It becomes alignment. The problem most people face is that they promise too much, too often. They set standards they cannot maintain. They create rules they cannot enforce. Then they fail, and interpret that failure as proof that they lack discipline. That interpretation is wrong. The issue was not discipline, it was unrealistic commitment. Trust cannot grow in an environment of constant failure. To rebuild self-trust, you must make promises that are easy to keep, not because you are weak, but because trust grows through success. Start with actions that feel almost too small. 10 minutes of focused work, 1 page written, a short walk, 1 deliberate pause before reacting. Then do them every day. No exceptions, no excuses. Consistency matters more than difficulty. When you succeed at something small, your mind takes note. It begins to expect follow-through. Expectation creates momentum. Over time, you can increase the standard, slowly, but never increase the promise faster than your ability to keep it. Discipline is not built by ambition. It is built by accuracy. Accuracy in knowing what you can maintain. Accuracy in enforcing what you decide. Another critical part of self-trust is how you respond when you fall short. Undisciplined people attack themselves. They spiral into guilt. They quit. Disciplined people correct. Correction is calm. It is specific. It is forward-focused. You don't rebuild trust by punishing yourself. You rebuild it by returning to structure. One missed action does not destroy discipline. Repeated avoidance does. The difference is response. When you miss something, acknowledge it without drama and resume immediately. No waiting for motivation. No waiting for the next week. This teaches your mind something important. Failure does not end commitment. This is how resilience is built. Trust grows not because you are perfect, but because you are consistent in returning. Another aspect of self-trust is keeping your word even when no one is watching. External accountability is helpful, but internal accountability is transformative. When you follow through without praise, without recognition, without reward, you change your relationship with yourself. You stop performing. You start leading. Leadership always begins internally. You cannot lead your life if you do not trust your own direction. Becoming someone you can trust means becoming predictable to yourself. Predictable does not mean boring. It means stable. Stable people make progress. They don't surge and crash. They don't depend on mood. They move forward steadily. This steadiness creates confidence, not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need reassurance, because it is based on evidence. Evidence that you show up, evidence that you follow through, evidence that your word means something. That evidence compounds. Over weeks, you notice something shift. You hesitate less. You doubt less. You act more decisively. Not because life became easier, but because you became reliable. This is one of the most powerful changes discipline creates. You stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, energy becomes available for growth. Becoming someone you can trust is not a dramatic transformation. It is a series of small decisions honored consistently. 6 months of discipline is 6 months of rebuilding trust. Not through perfection, through reliability. And once trust is restored, discipline no longer feels like effort. It feels like integrity. Integrity is alignment between what you say and what you do. That alignment changes everything. Because when you trust yourself, you move through life with clarity. You stop questioning your own direction. You know that when you decide, you will act. And that certainty is one of the strongest foundations a disciplined life can have. Chapter 8. Why consistency always wins. Consistency is not exciting. It does not create dramatic stories. It does not produce instant validation. It does not feel powerful in the moment. And yet, consistency is the force behind every lasting transformation. Most people underestimate it because they are obsessed with intensity. They believe change comes from extreme effort, sudden breakthroughs, or moments of total commitment. They wait for the day they feel ready to go all in. That day rarely comes. And even when it does, it doesn't last. Intensity burns fast. Consistency burns slow, but slow burns reshape everything. Consistency is what remains when motivation disappears. It is what carries you forward when discipline feels heavy. It is what quietly compounds while nothing seems to be happening. This is why consistency always wins. Not because it feels good, but because it survives. Many people start strong. Very few continue steadily. The difference between those two paths is not talent or intelligence. It is tolerance for repetition. Consistency asks you to show up on ordinary days. Days with no reward. Days with no visible progress. Days when quitting feels reasonable. Those days are the test. Anyone can push hard for a week. Anyone can be disciplined when results are obvious. But life is not lived in obvious moments. It is lived in the in-between, the quiet days, the dull routines, the unremarkable effort. Consistency turns those days into leverage. Every time you show up on a day that doesn't matter, you build strength for the days that do. This is why consistency is more important than intensity. Intensity depends on emotion. Consistency depends on structure, and structure outlasts emotion. When you rely on intensity, your progress becomes unstable. You surge forward, then collapse. You start again, then burn out. This creates a cycle of hope and disappointment. Consistency breaks that cycle. It removes drama from growth. Growth becomes mechanical, predictable, reliable, and reliability is powerful. Consistency works because it changes identity before results appear. You do not become disciplined after you see progress. You see progress after you become disciplined. Consistency trains your nervous system. It teaches your mind that action is normal, that follow-through is expected, that quitting is not an option. Over time, resistance decreases, not because tasks become easier, but because your relationship with effort changes. Effort stops feeling personal. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" You ask, "Is this what I do today?" That shift removes friction. Friction is what exhausts people, not the work itself. Most people are not tired from effort. They are tired from indecision. Consistency eliminates indecision. When something is done every day, there is no debate. You don't negotiate. You don't hesitate. You act. This is why consistent people appear calm. They are not calmer by nature. They are calmer by routine. Routine creates certainty. Certainty creates confidence. Consistency also protects you from emotional volatility. On good days, it prevents overconfidence. On bad days, it prevents collapse. It keeps you centered. Instead of reacting to how you feel, you respond to what is required. That response builds resilience. Resilience is not toughness. It is continuity. It is the ability to keep going without constant recovery. This is why consistency is essential for long-term change. 6 months of discipline is not 6 months of heroic effort. It is 6 months of steady behavior. Some days will feel productive. Others will feel wasted. Consistency does not care how the day feels. It cares that the action happens, and action, repeated long enough, reshapes outcomes. Most people quit too early because they measure progress emotionally. They ask, "Do I feel different yet? Does this feel worth it? Shouldn't I be further by now?" These questions are dangerous. They shift focus away from behavior and toward validation. Consistency does not require validation. It requires patience. Patience is the willingness to act without feedback. That is rare. And that rarity is why consistency creates advantage. While others wait for signs, you continue. While others adjust constantly, you repeat. While others doubt, you stay. And slowly, without drama, the gap widens. Consistency also builds something intensity never can: trust. Trust in the process. Trust in yourself. Trust in time. You stop questioning whether effort matters. You know it does, because you have seen it accumulate. This trust reduces anxiety. You are no longer in a rush. Urgency fades when you understand compounding. You realize that missing one day does not ruin progress, but quitting does. You learn to recover quickly. Consistency is forgiving. It allows imperfection as long as you return. This makes discipline sustainable. Sustainability is the real goal, not short-term success, not temporary change, a way of operating that does not collapse under pressure. Consistency gives you that. It teaches you to work with time instead of fighting it. Time is not the enemy. Impatience is. Most people give up right before consistency begins to pay off. They stop when repetition starts to feel dull. They leave when growth becomes invisible. They assume nothing is happening, but something is happening. Momentum is forming. Momentum is invisible at first, then undeniable. It starts as resistance reduction. Tasks feel lighter. Decisions feel clearer. Then habits stabilize. Actions become automatic. Then identity shifts. You stop trying to be disciplined. You simply are. This is when change accelerates. Not suddenly, but steadily. Consistency creates leverage because it compounds in multiple areas. Your habits improve. Your confidence grows. Your emotional regulation strengthens. Your focus deepens. Each improvement reinforces the others. This creates a self-supporting system. Discipline no longer requires force. It is supported by environment, routine, and identity. This is the difference between temporary effort and permanent change. Consistency builds systems. Intensity burns them down. If you want to change everything in 6 months, you must abandon the desire for dramatic days. You must accept ordinary ones. You must measure progress by adherence, not feeling. Ask yourself one better question each day. Did I show up? Not perfectly, not impressively, simply consistently. That question keeps you grounded. It brings discipline back to something manageable. Consistency also humbles you. It reminds you that growth is earned slowly, that shortcuts rarely last, that patience is a form of strength. This humility protects you from arrogance. Arrogance leads to overconfidence. Overconfidence leads to neglect. Neglect destroys discipline. Consistency keeps you honest. You don't feel superior. You feel committed. Commitment lasts longer than confidence. Confidence fluctuates. Commitment endures. 6 months of consistency will not turn you into a different person overnight, but it will create a version of you that is calmer, stronger, and more reliable. You will think more clearly, react less emotionally, act more deliberately. Not because life became easier, but because your foundation became stable. Consistency is not glamorous. It will not impress people who chase novelty. But it will quietly change your life. It will give you something rare. Momentum without chaos. Progress without pressure. Discipline without exhaustion. This is why consistency always wins. Not because it is powerful in the moment, but because it remains when everything else fades. And if you give yourself 6 months of it, real consistency, not perfection, you will look back and realize that everything changed not all at once, but all the same. Because you stayed, because you repeated, because you didn't quit when nothing felt special. That is how discipline works, and that is how consistency reshapes a life. 6 months is not a long time. It passes quietly, without announcements, without warnings. And yet, 6 months can completely separate 2 versions of the same person. The version that stayed the same, and the version that finally took control. This audiobook was never about doing more. It was never about becoming extreme, intense, or obsessed. It was about becoming consistent, about choosing discipline not as punishment, but as a standard. Because discipline is not something you add to your life. It is something you build your life around. Over the last chapters, one truth has repeated itself in different forms. Nothing changes until behavior changes, and behavior does not change without discipline. You have seen that discipline does not begin with motivation. It begins with structure. It begins with how you start your day, with how you remove negotiation, with how you tolerate boredom, with how you protect focus, with how you regulate emotion, with how you rebuild trust with yourself, with how you stay consistent when nothing feels special. None of these ideas are complicated, but they are demanding. Not demanding in effort, but demanding in honesty. They ask you to stop lying to yourself, to stop postponing responsibility, to stop waiting for a future version of you to act. They ask you to act now, as you are. This is where real change begins, not in inspiration, not in excitement, but in decision. Discipline is the decision to act according to your standards regardless of how you feel. That decision, repeated daily, reshapes identity, and identity reshapes life. If you take one thing from this audiobook, let it be this. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your discipline. Goals are direction. Discipline is execution. Without discipline, goals remain ideas. With discipline, even small goals compound into something powerful. 6 months of discipline will not make life perfect. You will still face stress. You will still face doubt. You will still face moments where quitting feels easier. The difference is not that these moments disappear. The difference is that they no longer control you. Discipline does not remove difficulty. It removes chaos. It replaces reaction with response, impulse with intention, excuses with standards. That replacement is subtle but profound. Because when chaos is removed, clarity appears. And clarity is the foundation of calm. Calm is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of control. Control over attention, control over behavior, control over response. This is the freedom discipline offers. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom from regret. Regret comes from knowing what you should have done and choosing not to do it. Discipline closes that gap. It aligns intention with action. That alignment creates integrity, and integrity is one of the most powerful internal states a person can have. When you act with integrity, you trust yourself. When you trust yourself, you move decisively. When you move decisively, life responds, not always immediately, but inevitably. 6 months from now, your life will reflect what you practiced, not what you planned, not what you hoped, what you practiced. If you practiced negotiation, avoidance, and distraction, your life will feel familiar. If you practice discipline, structure, and consistency, your life will feel different, not dramatically, but unmistakably. You will wake up with more clarity. You will move through the day with less resistance. You will respond instead of react. You will trust your own word, and that trust will change how you see yourself. You will no longer feel like someone trying to get their life together. You will feel like someone who already has. That shift is quiet, but it is permanent. Before you finish this audiobook, there is one final challenge. Not a challenge of effort, but of commitment. Choose one habit small enough that you cannot justify avoiding it, and commit to it for the next 72 hours. No negotiation, no adjustment, no exceptions. Not to prove anything to anyone else, but to prove something to yourself, that you can decide and follow through. That one small act matters, because it does. Discipline does not arrive fully formed. It is built through small, honored decisions, and those decisions are available to you every day. You do not need to wait for the perfect time. You do not need to feel ready. You do not need to change everything at once. You only need to begin and stay. 6 months from now, you will look back on this moment, and you will either say, "This is where I finally took control," or you will say, "This is where I understood." but did nothing. The difference between those two outcomes is not intelligence, talent, or opportunity. It is discipline. Quiet discipline. Daily discipline. Non-negotiable discipline. If you stay consistent, even when nothing feels special, you will change. Not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. And strength, when built slowly and honestly, does not disappear. It compounds. You already know what to do. Now the only question that matters is simple. Will you do it, even when no one is watching? That answer will define the next 6 months of your life. Choose carefully, stay disciplined, and let everything else change.
Friends, today we're going to talk about a topic that is both the truth and a reality people often choose to ignore. This is the real-life story of a trader. But before you sit back and dive into this journey, just do me a small favor. If you genuinely enjoy being part of this channel, give this video a like and only subscribe when you truly feel that something here has connected with you. Also, make sure to comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Alright, let's slowly begin this video.